Hey, it's Chef Todd Moore again. I'll tell you, the people at Fat Loss Lifestyle quickly becoming my favorite people. Thank you. Thanks for the great response to my videos. I appreciate it. I'm here to help you achieve your goals. I hear from people all over the world every day. They tell me about their problems with cooking. They have a fear of cooking, or their cooking is inconsistent. They're guessing at their cooking. They're cooking the same thing over and over again and again. They know only 5 things, but most of them have a frustration with the shortcomings of recipes. So if you've experienced the same things, I hope I'm helping you find a greater variety of food, more wholesome foods, by examining basic cooking methods. You remember the second video that Darin invited me to post on Fat Loss Lifestyle? It was about conductive versus convective heat. Well, today we're going to examine the basic cooking methods behind the most intense conductive heat you have at your disposal, your barbecue grill. I'm going to tell you today why cooking outdoors is the great male excuse, and I'm going to show you methods to cook the perfect steak, chicken, pork, vegetables, whatever you would like outside with this one method. Lid up, lid down. Lid up, lid down. I can't figure it out. Lid up, lid down, which is it? I'm Chef Todd Moore. Welcome back to Cooking Course. This is a question asked of me most often, talking about grilling today. Do you leave the lid up? Do you close the lid? What's the difference? Well, the difference is, if you've seen our segment on heat transfer, the difference between convective and conductive heat. The first tip I'll give you with grilling is we want to apply direct source intense conductive heat. If saute is like driving the car, grilling is like being strapped to a rocket ship. I mean, this is the most intense heat that we can possibly apply to food. So if we have the lid down, what happens? Well, it starts to steam. You have similar to your oven. If you put a steak on your grill, close the lid, you might as well take it out, put it in your oven, turn your grill off, take it inside and bake the thing. Because that's what you're doing. You're starting a convective process. The steak is not only cooking from the bottom, but it's also cooking from the top. You're baking the steak in some regard. We want to apply heat when we're grilling from one source, directly below, like your broiler, like the barbecue grill, like your stovetop, the saute, direct source, conductive heat. That's the most important part of grilling, but we'll have another episode where I'll totally contradict myself on that. We'll close the lid. Well, one of the things that really bugs me about grilling, and I find it really funny, because I talk to more men that say, well, I can't cook in the house, but boy, I can grill outside. To me, the grill is the great excuse, because if you took something inside that was burnt, charred, black, and brought it to your family and said, here's dinner, burnt, charred, black, it would be unacceptable. But if you cooked it outside and it's burnt, charred, black, sure, it's nicely blackened. Oh, he's great on the barbecue grill. Well, to me, this is much harder than cooking inside. You don't have much time to make decisions on the barbecue grill. This is intense, direct source, rocket ship heat. Now, the first thing in grilling items, you need to choose the correct item to grill. The grill, because of the intense heat, will not tenderize anything. You don't have time to tenderize things. As soon as you put that down, we'll get coagulation of proteins, stiffening and shrinking of those proteins very quickly, as opposed to, say, a braising method on the stovetop, where we can add some liquid and simmer a tougher cut of meat in some liquid and braise it. It will tenderize. That doesn't happen on the grill. It's too fast. One of the ways that we tenderize things for the barbecue grill is with marinades, and especially for beef and tougher meats, add an acid to the marinade. Make sure that there's some lemon juice or wine or tomato juice, ketchup, something like that. Acids break down the connective tissues in beef and tenderize them, and that's why we marinate things for the grill, because it's not going to be marinated, it's not going to get more tender in the actual cooking process. We want to try and put some moisture and tenderization beforehand. So let's talk about basic grilling method. Number one, we want to get our grill as hot as possible. Rocket ship hot as possible, burners all the way up, lid down to burn off the stuff that you left on there last time, and start creating a smoky flavor to the grill. That's one of the great benefits of grilling, is that you do impart those smoky flavors. That cheese from the cheeseburger from last summer, that's still down on the bottom of those lava rocks. Now, I'm using a gas grill. A charcoal grill imparts even more flavor, a little trickier to get consistent heat. You regulate the heat on a charcoal grill simply by raising or lowering your protein product to make it closer or further from the heat. Here, of course, we have dials. It's either off or rocket ship, in my opinion, all the way on. I don't ever lower the heat at any time. That's the beauty of this cooking method. Straight to the moon, Alice. We're going to get a nice piece of beef tenderloin here. Check, nice little steak that I cut for us out of that long tenderloin, if you saw that episode. This is a very nice tender cut of meat. I would not use a top round or a stew meat to grill something. And similar with fish, really tough to grill like a really tender fish like flounder versus swordfish steak or mako shark because of the proteins in it. So here we have our tenderloin steak. I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil and brush the top with some olive oil. Flip it over, brush the bottom with some olive oil. This is going to help sear the steak a little bit, help me it not stick to the grill as much. How about some salt and pepper? Salt, pepper, a little bit of salt. Now there's a big discussion in the culinary world about, or maybe I just think there's a big discussion, it's going on in my head. There's a big discussion about whether you salt beef before you cook it or not. Salt has an osmotic effect. Salt pulls moisture from items. Salt retains 10 times its weight in moisture. So most often people would say don't salt meats and protein products early because the salt will bring the moisture out. But again, we're on the rocket ship. I'd rather have the flavor. And if you have a favorite rub or something you want to put on at this point, now's the time to do it. Our grill, my indicator, my thermometer needle on the front there, it's pinned, rocket ship, we're going. So my grill is as hot as I can get it. My steak, if I have a show side and a no side, maybe there's a side where there's more fat and it doesn't look as nice, but remember, always show side down first. So we'll get ahead and lay that right down on the grill. Let me wash my hands. I'm back. Put the steak down on the grill. Now we've talked about the cooking process, and when we apply heat to food before, one of the first things that's going to happen here, 165 degrees, coagulation of proteins. Our steak starts to stiffen and shrink. Second thing that happens, 320 degrees, sugars caramelize. That's when we get that nice, that's when the steak smells. You can smell somebody cooking steak down the street. That's the caramelization of sugars. That's what that gives that kind of sweet steak type smell. So the first thing that I'm going to look for on the steak is this coagulation of proteins. It goes from being red, like my raw steak is, to the brown starting to creep up along the side of the steak over here. Alright, here's my steak on the grill, and the first thing that I'm noticing is it goes from this red that's on top here, you can see my tongs, to on the side it's starting to turn the brownish gray. I know that's starting to cook, and as a matter of fact I'm going to peek up under it and see that I've got some grill marks working already. So you know what the first thing I do is? Let's pick it up, move it slightly on the grill, and put it back down. And now I'm going to get a 90-degree cross-hatched grill mark and give that some time. So I'm looking at my coagulation of proteins as the steak continues to cook. Alright, here's our steak on the grill again, and my giant tongs, giant tongs, because I wanted to zoom real in and probably make the steak look bigger than it really is. But not only do I see the coagulation of protein coming up the side of the steak, and it's now more than halfway, number one. Number two, I see this red liquid starting to pool in the nooks and crannies of the steak. In French culinary, this is called à point. When you cook something until the juices rise, this makes me know that this steak is at least 75%, 50 to 75% cooked on one side. It gives me the opportunity to have all the indicators of whether it's done or not. If I put the steak on the grill and go 2, 3, 4, 5 and then flip it over, I'm just looking at a brown piece of steak. I lose all these indicators of whether it's done. So I go ahead and turn it over, and look at that nice cross-hatched marking that I have on my steak. Now we're going to continue to cook this until it's done. How do you know when it's done? The question most often asked of me, how do I know when the steak is done? Well, everybody knows the answer to that. You take out a knife and you gash it down the middle and you look inside it and you see if it's done yet. And if it's not, you put it back together, cover it with some sauce, and then come back with your knife and gash it again. Please, no gashing of steaks. Get yourself A thermometer, we've talked about it 10 times now. An instant read thermometer. You know how some people have a sleep number? They have a certain kind of bed, they have a sleep number. I have a steak number. 128 is my steak. My steak comes off the grill at 128 degrees. It doesn't mean it stops cooking immediately. It keeps cooking. It's going to carry over to 133, 135 or so. That's my perfect pink, not red steak. I love it. So an instant read thermometer. This is a really cool invention that I'm waving around. This is a wireless thermometer. This part goes in the steak. Stick this in the steak. This goes on your belt and you walk around your house. And when your steak is done, doot, 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 it goes off. No more in the patio door, out the patio door, lift the lid, close the lid, stick it a bunch of times. Don't check your steak with a fork either. Don't pierce the steak. So what I'm going to do is take out my thermometer, not the fancy one. Take the steak off the grill. I don't want to take the temperature of the grill. Hey, that steak is 1200 degrees. Oh my God. Put the thermometer in the steak. Watch it go. 120, 25, 30. I like it. I'm going to sit it on a plate and let it rest. This is the last thing that I need to advise you. Steaks don't come off the grill and then right on the plate. Ever go to a restaurant and get a bloody pile of liquid in the bottom of your plate? That's amateurish. In a restaurant they call it bump and run. Sit the steak on a plate first. Let the juices redistribute. Let whatever's going to come out, come out. Touch it to a paper towel or something, then it gets nice and plated and it'll be the juiciest steak you ever made.